I want to talk about something that not many people talk about because it's really a little depressing. So obviously, when we get diagnosed with inflammatory bowel disease, or if you have another debilitating autoimmune disease or condition, it can feel really hard to go somewhere because you don't feel good. Your body may hurt. You can't control your bowels. In my case, when I'm in a very severe flare, I have to be by a bathroom. So I cannot enjoy going anywhere, let alone flying across the country or, even just driving to the grocery store is very difficult. And so one thing I didn't realize after I got diagnosed is yes, I knew that it was hard for me to run errands and things like that. But I never realized until it happened that I was going to miss the funerals of my grandparents. That was the hardest part for me because if you would have asked me when I was younger or even like the day before I got sick with inflammatory bowel disease, if I ever thought that I would miss the funeral of my grandparents, I would have said, no way. Like, they took care of me growing up. They were always there. Obviously I had my parents, but my grandparents were really around. I was very fortunate that they were around a lot and I would spend the night at their house. So I was very close with them. But sadly, one of my grandparents died shortly after I gave birth to my daughter. I was in an all-out flare. I gave birth to her and I went into a full-blown flare less than 3 weeks later. So there was no way I was going to be able to get on a plane. I was living in Washington State at the time. There was no way I was going to be able to fly to Arizona. I could hardly take care of myself. All of my energy was going into taking care of my infant. And I was flaring. It was extremely difficult. And so it was hard for me to accept that I was going to have to miss the funeral of my grandmother, somebody that I loved so much. But I had to accept it for what it was. And I know people in my family were probably thinking, how could she not come? Like, is she ungrateful? Like, what's the problem? But they didn't understand the disease. And nobody said that to my face, but that is how I felt. I hope that my family members understood, but it just not being able to get closure, and in my case, like not being able to go to the funeral and get closure was very difficult for me. And sadly, I have missed all but one of my grandparents' funerals, and because each time I was sick. Sadly, my other grandma, my abuelita, she passed away this summer. I have not been feeling very well. My gastroenterologist told me I'm living in Florida right now, and he just told me, look, for you to fly to Arizona to go to your grandmother's funeral, this is not a good idea. We don't want you to go into a full-blown flare because though I'm having symptoms, there are minor symptoms to me. I have some blood, I have some mucus, I'm bloated, I have some digestive discomfort, but it's not like, oh my gosh, I have to run to the bathroom in 10 seconds or less or I'm going to have an accident. And so it was hard for me because I was very, 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 very close with my grandmother. And I just felt like I was letting her down, even though I knew she had come with me to appointments. She was there one time when I passed out because I was so malnourished. I just collapsed, and she was there to pick me up, and she was there for a lot of the time just seeing me struggle with inflammatory bowel disease. And so deep down in my heart, I knew that she was okay with me not going. But really, there was nothing I could do. My gastroenterologist basically was like, ultimately, it is up to you, but it is a very, very bad idea. And so this is where I had to really think. And I was like, well, I have 2 children that rely on me. I'm their primary caregiver. I am not feeling well if I go. Oftentimes when I travel, the stress and things like that really do exacerbate my symptoms. But particularly when I'm going to a stressful environment, and sadly a funeral is stressful and sad, and I know my body, and I know that most likely would have put me into a full-blown flare. And so I just had to make the call that it was probably best based off of my most recent colonoscopy, my gastroenterologist, his recommendations, and my current situation at home with my children and everything else, that it was not a good idea to go. And it was very difficult to come to that conclusion, because obviously my doctor isn't going to tell me what to do, but he strongly suggested that I don't go, because I'm right on that teetering mark where my body could go either way. It could go into a full-blown flare, or it could, slowly, with my Stelara treatments and, some dietary changes, because I am starting to get sick, that my body will, the symptoms will get better. And so it's just so difficult for me, because I wanted to be there to be with my family and to see everybody and to get that closure, to celebrate my grandma's life. But sadly, I was not able to attend. And so I just want to tell all of you out there who have had to miss significant events like weddings or funerals or birthday parties or whatever it may be, it is not your fault, and don't feel guilty, because I, for years, carried the guilt. I mean, I still have, I look back and I'm like, man, I would have never thought that I would have missed any of my grandparents' funerals. I missed one of my best friend's wedding. I was extremely sick and extremely depressed. And I never thought that would happen. But there was not much I could do. And so be kind to yourself. It is hard enough having inflammatory bowel disease, and carrying guilt of things that you miss because there's nothing you can do about it is not helpful. When you are flaring, or you feel very sick, or you are suffering from depression because you are sick, or anxiety because you are sick, you are not letting anybody down by not attending events. You are taking care of yourself. And it took me years to accept the fact that I had to take care of myself. And it really took me having kids and really being extremely ill, most recently, to just realize, okay, I have to accept that sometimes I cannot do the things that I want to do because I have this chronic disease, and that's okay. And so I just want to tell you all, sometimes life throws us curveballs that we can't, we don't expect. And in those curveballs are extra curveballs, as in missing funerals, missing weddings, missing important events. And we feel even worse, even though there's nothing we can do about it. We can't control our symptoms when you're in all out flare. You can do everything you can to try and mitigate the symptoms. Like, if your doctor suggests you be on medication, you take the medication, you change your, your lifestyle, get more sleep, take care of yourself. But sometimes you can do everything right and still be in a severe flare. And so just be kind with yourselves. I wish I was kind with myself years ago. It really wasn't until the past year or two, maybe the past 3 years, that I really realized, okay, I have to take care of myself, because if I don't, who's going to take care of my kids? And so no matter what is going on in your life, just keep moving forward. And if you have any questions, or you would like to share any of your stories of major events or things that you've had to miss due to your chronic illness, reach out to me and we can talk about it. I hope you all have a wonderful day.